Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving deep into a conflict that, while brief, was one of the most intense and significant military confrontations of the late 20th century, the Falklands War. In just 74 days in 1982, this remote archipelago in the South Atlantic became the stage for a dramatic clash between Argentina and the United Kingdom, a conflict that captured the world's attention and left a lasting legacy. So how did it all begin? The story of the Falkland Islands, or Las Malvinas as they're known in Argentina, is a long and complex one, stretching back centuries. Both Britain and Argentina have long-standing claims to these windswept islands, located about 300 miles off the Argentine coast. For Argentina, the islands are a matter of national pride and sovereignty, seen as a remnant of colonialism that rightfully belongs to them. For Britain, which has administered the islands since 1833, the principle of self-determination for the islanders, who are overwhelmingly of British descent and wish to remain so, is paramount. By the early 1980s, Argentina was under the control of a military junta led by General Leopoldo Galtieri. The regime was facing severe economic problems and widespread public discontent. In a move widely seen as an attempt to rally nationalist sentiment and divert attention from domestic issues, the junta made a fateful decision. On April 2, 1982, Argentine forces launched a surprise invasion, swiftly overwhelming the small British garrison and taking control of the islands. The Argentine public erupted in celebration, convinced that the Malvinas were finally theirs. The reaction in London was one of shock and outrage. The British Prime Minister at the time, Margaret Thatcher, known as the Iron Lady, was not about to let this act of aggression stand. Despite many advisors believing that retaking islands 8,000 miles away was a logistical nightmare, her government declared that British sovereignty would be restored. Within days, a massive naval task force, the largest Britain had assembled since the Suez Crisis, was steaming south towards the Falklands. The world watched, holding its breath. Was a full-scale war really about to happen? The journey south was a race against time. The British forces had to travel the vast distance to the South Atlantic before the harsh Antarctic winter set in, which would make military operations nearly impossible. The task force was a remarkable feat of improvisation, comprising aircraft carriers, destroyers, submarines, and cruise liners hastily converted into troopships. It carried thousands of soldiers, Royal Marines, and airmen, all heading into the unknown. The first major clash came on May 2nd. The British nuclear-powered submarine, HMS Conqueror, detected the Argentine cruiser, the ARA General Belgrano. The Belgrano, a veteran of Pearl Harbor, was outside the 200-mile exclusion zone Britain had declared around the islands. Believing it posed a significant threat to the task force, the British War Cabinet gave the order to attack. 2 torpedoes from the Conqueror struck the cruiser, which sank rapidly, resulting in the tragic loss of over 300 Argentine sailors. This event remains one of the most controversial moments of the war, but it had a decisive military effect. The Argentine Navy returned to port and played little further part in the conflict. The air war, however, was just beginning. The Argentinian Air Force, flying from mainland bases, proved to be a formidable and incredibly brave opponent. Their pilots flew low and fast, pressing home daring attacks on the British fleet with bombs and French-made Exocet anti-ship missiles. On May 4th, a single Exocet struck the destroyer HMS Sheffield, starting a fire that eventually doomed the ship. It was a stark reminder of the immense danger the British forces faced. Several other British ships, including HMS Coventry, HMS Ardent, and HMS Antelope, were also sunk by air attacks, with many more damaged. The skies over what the pilots called Bomb Alley in San Carlos water became a deadly arena. The British, in turn, relied on their Sea Harrier jump jets. Flying from the aircraft carriers HMS Hermes and HMS Invincible, the Harrier pilots were outnumbered but had the advantage of superior training and advanced Sidewinder air-to-air missiles. They fought valiantly to protect the fleet, shooting down numerous Argentine aircraft in intense dogfights. The Royal Air Force also conducted one of the most audacious missions of the war, the Black Buck raids. Vulcan bombers flew an incredible 8,000-mile round trip from Ascension Island, refueling multiple times in midair to bomb the runway at Port Stanley, the island's capital. On May 21st, the land war began. British commandos and paratroopers staged an amphibious landing at San Carlos Water on East Falkland. From this beachhead, they began the arduous Yomp, a grueling march with heavy equipment across the boggy, unforgiving terrain of the islands. Their objective, the capital, Port Stanley, where the main body of Argentine troops was dug in. The battles that followed were fierce and fought in brutal conditions. Key engagements took place at Goose Green, where the 2nd Battalion of the Parachute Regiment fought a long and difficult battle against a larger Argentine force. There were also the nighttime assaults on the mountains surrounding Stanley, Mount Harriet, Two Sisters, and Mount Longdon. These were brutal, close-quarters fights, often fought with bayonets in freezing darkness. The courage and professionalism of the British soldiers, facing well-entrenched defenders, were remarkable. On the night of June 11th, the battle for Mount Longdon became one of the bloodiest of the land campaign, a desperate struggle for control of the high ground. The final push came on the nights of June 13th and 14th. British forces launched coordinated attacks on the last line of Argentine defenses on Mount Tumbledown, Wireless Ridge, and Sapper Hill. With their positions collapsing and British troops on the edge of Port Stanley, the Argentine commander, General Mario Menendez, realized his situation was hopeless. On June 14, 1982, he formally surrendered to the British commander, Major General Jeremy Moore. The 74-day war was over. The aftermath was profound for both nations. For Britain, the victory was a moment of national resurgence, boosting the political fortunes of Margaret Thatcher and reaffirming the country's military capabilities on the world stage. However, it came at a cost. 255 British service members and 3 civilian islanders lost their lives. For Argentina, the defeat was a national humiliation. It hastened the downfall of the military junta and paved the way for the restoration of democracy in the country the following year. The war cost the lives of 649 Argentine military personnel. Today, the Falkland Islands remain a British overseas territory. The principle of self-determination for the islanders continues to be the cornerstone of British policy. The scars of the war, both physical and emotional, remain for the veterans on both sides. The conflict of 1982 stands as a powerful testament to the human cost of war, the complexities of history, and the dramatic lengths to which nations will go for a small group of islands at the bottom of the world. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive into the Falklands War. It's a complex piece of history with many perspectives, and I hope this gave you a clearer picture of what happened. If you found this video interesting, please hit that like button and be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next historical journey. We'd love to have you with us. Thanks for watching.